Happy Saturday, y'all. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Success Code, where conscious leadership meets business and real talk. Happy Saturday, y'all. Okay, so I'm going to remove this. I'm trying something new today. Happy Easter for those of you who are celebrating. I hope you're having a relaxing day today. And what that means to you, it's probably silence, it's probably hanging out with family, whatever that is. I wish you an amazing day. So today, I'm flying solo today. I hope a bunch of you will hop on. And if you're watching on the replay, please like, subscribe, and share this message. I'm excited to talk to you guys about the myth of being busy. Oh my gosh. Last week I was so busy. It was insane. And I thought since I'm going to do a solo today, I wanted to touch base on that myth and bust it wide open, right? Because I think that a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we use busy as a badge of honor. Would you agree? Would you agree? Yeah, I did that for a long time. And sometimes I fall back into that trap of, my calendar being full, that I have no space. It's interesting. And I sometimes wonder about some of the appointments I get to schedule on other people's calendar. Sometimes they send the calendar link to me, I'll click on it. And I know that we segment our calendars. And a lot of times, and I remember this happening to me this week as well, a lot of times people's calendars are booked out for a month or two. And it's not because they are putting in self-care stuff or anything like that. They actually send back a message and say, hey, I'm really booked. I'm really busy. And so I want to talk about what busy means to you. What does busy mean to you in your life? Whether it's in your business, whether it's in your family life, what does busy mean to you? So put it in the chat if you are here. I can't see. Let's hope. Hang on one second. Yeah, I think I'm in the right place. If you're here and you're going to engage with me this morning in this conversation, just put it in the chat and tell me what busy means to you. What do you when you say you're busy? What is a conversation that you have going on in your head? So let's get going. Today is kind of dreary in terms of the weather here. It stormed last night, and I made a commitment to show up. I could be in bed under the quiet, under the shadows, under the covers, and I said, you know what? Let me come in here and really like pour into you guys today, and really unpack some stuff. Right? Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Lean in, lean in, lean in, lean in. We've been taught that success is found in being in motion, being in action. And don't get me wrong, that's not a lie. It's not a lie, because remember, we're here to bust up the lies and the myths, right? But that's not a lie in terms of the action, right? It's the kind of action that is most important. Wouldn't you agree? It's the kind of action that's most important. It's the action of, I'll give you an example. I remember I was in a coaching program, and it was so busy that my nervous system went out of whack. I mean, my body was just like, this ain't it, Lorna. This is not it. And in that program, the perception was given to us that our calendars had to be booked 24/7, sales calls, networking gigs, all kinds of stuff. It was just, like if you weren't doing something at any given day of the week or any time of the day, that you were not productive. And I'm here to bust the myth, because I now know that busy doesn't mean productive. So I'll tell you a story from my real estate standpoint, about how I used to hustle. And when I say hustle, y'all, I mean hustle. I used to get up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I never used to do the things that I do now. Hold on. I never used to do the things I do now, which is my self-care routine. When I get up at that time of the morning, I used to get up and go, like put my foot down, straight to the bathroom, brush the teeth, barely, taking care of myself. And out the door I went, and I was out from 7 o'clock in the morning in the car until 7 o'clock at night. That's hustle. And when I say on the go, driving that entire time, I was driving. I barely pulled over back in those days, which caused me to put on a lot of weight. Back in those days, I used to stop in Dunkin' Donuts. First thing in the morning, that was my routine. Dunkin' Donuts. I would get a vanilla chai tea. So many calories, but imagine doing that every day, right? Sometimes twice a day, because the drive-through was my friend. Because if in my mind, if I was in the drive-through, then I was saving time, right? So healthy eating was not a thing. It was not a thing, y'all. Not a thing, not even in the slightest. And that was breakfast. Lunch was driving through the McDonald's and getting a fish sandwich, or before I stopped eating meat, I never ate the meat at McDonald's or anywhere else. So it was mostly a fish sandwich, but the tartar sauce on that fish sandwich was not good for my body. And that was, it took something like almost crashing the car to kind of wake me up to the fact that this is not aligned, right? This is not good for me. It's not good for my body. It's not good for, sustainability, right? And so I remember it was a Friday evening. I was driving that entire 15-hour day. And then I was on my way home. I had one more stop, and I was on my way home. And I remember my eyes kind of shut a little bit. And then I opened them up and, like shook myself out of it and kept going. And I remember the road I was on, as I'm telling you, it's going through my mind as I'm talking to you right now, because it's so like, this was such a pivotal moment for me in the hustle. And I remember I got into like the village area, and I was going like, it was a slight turn of the road, and my eyes closed again. And I remember just that close took a little bit longer. It took a little bit longer for me to open my eyes back up. And I opened my eyes just in time to gain control of the car and pull over. By the way, I was on a 2-lane road, 1 lane this way, 1 lane coming this way. So if I had swerved that car at all, I would have been done. Y'all hear me? Done. So in that period, and I don't want to make this heavy. I'm just making a point for you guys to see, right? In that period, in that season of my life, it was all about thinking, if I could just push a little harder, if I could just do a little more, if I could just get one more client, if I could just do one more networking event, because remember, I'm talking to you from my real estate space right now. And believe me, I could mirror it over into coaching and teaching and training, right? Because how you do one thing is how you do everything, y'all. Write that one down. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so um, that's when I realized that, you know, success without alignment, success without being integrous to yourself, success, um, yeah, success without alignment is just exhaustion dressed in expensive clothes and nice cars and big houses, right? Because you lose yourself in the midst of all that. And it's not just yourself. You lose your family, you lose your sense of self, you lose your just how to think. You can't even think when you're busy. That's like the epitome of not being present, right? And so for you, I want you to think about how would you shift if you can identify with or resonate with any of the things I'm saying right now. Start thinking about how you can shift into a different way of being so that you're not busy all the time, but you're being productive all the time. Um, and sometimes being productive means being still, literally not doing anything. I remember one time in one of my coaching programs, I'll give her a shout out, Shonda. Shonda had us at a mastermind event one time, and as one percenters, we get to meet with her after the event, a 3-day event, and she had us in the room. And one time she said to us, I want y'all to go home and do nothing. And I was like, what do you mean go home and do nothing? And she wasn't the first person to tell, she was the first coach to say that to me. She said, find a hotel room, book a room, find a hotel, book a room, go into the room and do nothing. And I was like, whoa, how are we going to do that? Back then, I used to say that to myself, right? How are we going to do that? And y'all, I'm gonna be real. I did not do it because it just didn't compute in my mind. As you know, I'm used to using every minute of the day to do something, right? That in my mind is being productive. And so when she shared that with us, I don't know anybody else who did it, but I didn't. And I went back into the regular grind, right? And so let's talk about for a minute, like why this myth of always being in the grind is a thing, and who benefits from that thought process, right? Who benefits from that myth, right? So we've been told that we get to grind because it's profitable, right? We've been told, but okay, but hold on. We've been told it's good to grind because it's profitable. But my question is, profitable for who? Is it profitable for you? Right? Or is it profitable for other people, the person or the people who are saying that it's profitable, right? And here's the thing, guys. I'm gonna shed some light for y'all today, because again, I don't speak to you from, you know, esoteric. I'm speaking to you from experience, and I'm speaking to you from my experience, and I'm speaking to you from the experience of my mentors, my teachers, my the people who I've studied who are successful. So we've been told that. Grind is profitable, but it's profitable for those people who are in that hustle culture of, selling courses, right? Coaching and coaching from that energy. But is it really creating clarity, right? And this is what I want to get to, because hustle culture sells courses. We can all agree on that. It sells courses because you always want to know what's the next thing to do. You always want to know, like, how fast can I do the next thing to realize success? Uh, you know, But here's the one thing: nobody talks about the level of dopamine that gets released in your brain and therefore into your body that causes all these other side effects, health side effects to your system, right? And so, how do you shift out of that, right? How do you shift out of that? Um, Before I go there, I want to talk about the illusion of productivity. And I want you to write that down, the illusion of productivity, because I remember when I was coaching with a specific coach. Y'all, I always have a coach. Just saying, I always have a coach. So I was coaching with this woman. Um, she was a really high ticket, high energy. She was high everything, right? Coach. And the one thing that I learned from her, even though she was high energy and high everything, productivity, I learned what productivity was when I was in her space. And I remember at first it was unconscious for me. I was in her space. I was in a 1 year program, but I was in her space 6 months out of the year, right? So imagine you're a business owner and you're coaching with a coach, and 6 months out of the year you have to travel to the coach for training and coaching and all the experiences that was in her program. 6 months out of the year, I was not even in my business, right? Watch this. I was not in my business for 6 months out of the year. And when I coached with her that year, I gotta tell y'all, I made more money than any of the years prior in the business. And I was 6 months of the year not in the business. You always hear people talk about work on your business, not in your business. That was a perfect example of that that quote. Work on your business more than you work in your business. Spend 20% of your time working in your business. So 20% of your time working on your business. I'm saying that wrong. Spend 20% of your time working in your business and 80% of your time working on your business, right? And working on your business can look like a lot of things. And I could do another segment on that. But working on your business can include a lot of things, including your self care. Because one of the things that I had to learn in that process and dissecting what was working was the fact that I was giving myself self care because I was being coached to give myself self care. Right. So, you know, when you really become present to how you're moving in your space and realizing that, okay, if I turn around that Pareto principle in my life and my business, where 80% of the time I'm working on myself, I'm working on my business, right? And I'm working on my family and relationships, then you can see how you can, that 20% result is going to be so much more impactful than if you're spending 80% in your business, which is the busyness that the hustle culture promotes, right? That is why you get to have a lot of clarity around what you're creating, both in your business and your life, right? Because that's going to dictate how you split that 80/20 principle, right? If you're not clear on why you're doing the thing you're doing, or you're not clear on even what you're creating, then that's the grind, y'all. That's the grind. And I'm here on a mission to shift that for myself and more importantly for y'all, because I strongly believe that when you shift one person, that's shifting consciousness, right? And if one person shift consciousness and they share that new awareness to somebody else, then consciousness shifts again. So the more each of us shift in that consciousness, then the more elevated the consciousness is going to get, right? So, what if we could reframe I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. What if we could reframe that business and talk about how what real success could look like with intention, right? With intention, right? So we talked about the clarity. What are you really building? Yesterday, I was on a call. It was actually a mastermind, and we were masterminding a lady's business. She was just starting out a new project in her business, and one of the things, she was talking about all the things that she was doing and what she thought everything was going to be for the consumer, but she lacked clarity on even why she was doing what she was doing. And that was her big takeaway. Now, mind you, this is somebody who has been in business for over 20 years, right? And she didn't have clarity. And I'm pointing this out like so deeply because a lot of times we are in business for a long time and we think that we know everything. And when we're starting a new project, we feel like, oh, I've already done it, so I know what I'm doing, and not open to other ideas that could either collapse time or streamline processes or just make things easier, or for instance using AI to strategize, and sometimes using AI as a part of the process to make the process more seamless, right? We're not open to those things. Well, this is what a great mastermind does, because the things that you think you already know, sometimes they become obsolete. And when you have more than one mind thinking about a thing, that one thing, there's so many possibilities that show up, right? And you'd be like, oh, I didn't think of that. Anyway, so that was a side note, but let's get back on track. So clarity, and with clarity comes alignment, right? We sometimes miss that part because we're so used to the grind and the business. We forget that if the alignment isn't there, that's the thing that causes the burnout, right? That's the thing. And it's a sneaky, subtle way of being that we don't pay attention to because we think it's normal, because we've been so used to doing it, right? It becomes a habit, and it becomes a habit that everybody is doing. And by the way, when everybody's doing something, that's what's called truth. But is it really true, right? Because everybody is doing it, that don't mean it's true. It may be true for them. You got to start thinking, is it true for me, right? Is it true for you, right? And when you start thinking that way, that's the beginning of unlocking yourself from the grind and the busyness, right? So here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to confuse movement. I don't want you to confuse business with momentum. Two different things, y'all. It took me a while to get to that one. Business and momentum are two completely different things, because you can have momentum sitting still. Yes. I don't mean you're not in action, but it's inspired action. And it could be too that you're not in action, because it could be too that you are not in action, but somebody else is in action on your behalf. Oh, let me say that one again. It could be that you're still and somebody else is in action on your behalf, causing and creating momentum. Y'all, I hope you caught that one. Really, really do hope you caught that one, because that is like the juice, right? The confusion gets really deep when you think that you, my friend, you must be the catalyst. Not necessarily. I'll circle back to that story about that year that I did a lot of traveling. That year, I did, I can't, it's anywhere between 72 and 75 transactions in real estate that year. I was coaching with the lady I told you about. And again, was it possible for me to do 70 odd deals when I was traveling half the year? It wasn't just me, right? So having people on your team is a huge solution to the business. And again, as I stated before in the beginning when we started, a lot of times we're using this business as a badge of honor. So giving that up can sometimes be difficult, you know. But I'm gonna tell you, this is how the millionaires do it, boo. This is how they do it. They take retreats. Remember I told you, my coach recently, she said after the event, go into a hotel, lock the door, watch TV, binge watch whatever you want to watch. That's a retreat in a sense, right? It's retreating from everything else. And here's the thing, guys, if you are somebody who reads the Bible, a perfect example of that positioning is, remember when Jesus was on the story about when Jesus, remember it's a story, so it's a story to help us to align with our lives, right? Remember when Jesus was on by the sea, the 12 disciples brought all the people, and he talked to them, he taught them, he conversed with them. It was both the feeding of the 5,000 and feeding of the 7,000, right? Those two stories. Well, what did Jesus do after he poured into 5,000 people? He retreated to the mountain. Remember that? Same principle. These are principles, y'all. Principles that are going to help us if we just pay attention and start thinking for ourselves and not just stay in the drudgery of the grind, right? So, like I said, a bunch of CEOs that I know, they're always on a retreat. Sometimes these CEOs take retreats 4 times a year. I used to think it was because, they just like having fun. Well, part of having the retreat is having fun, which is another business strategy, but we're not going to talk about that today, right? And another strategy that they use is, white space. When I learned about the concept of white space on my calendar, I was like, what do you mean white space? If nothing is in my calendar, that means I'm not being useful. It took me a while to understand how white space works, right? It's another principle to give your brain a little bit of release of pressure in the brain so that your creativity can rise up, right? That's just a simple explanation for it. But having white space in your day is like paramount. It just gives your nervous system some release. It just gives your whole body some release, right? That's part of self-care, y'all. It's part of self-care. And so what would it look like if you took that on? I know I am. So I want you guys to really consider adding white space into your day, because it will just make things more, a line is coming up again, but I want to say easy. It's going to make it easy, because when you give yourself space, your creativity can flow, right? The ideas can come. I know sometimes when I do that, so many ideas come into my space. I have to start recording because there's so much, or just write it in the notes in my phone because there's so many ideas that just start flowing. It's really a principle and a technique that has been lost in translation in our world of entrepreneurship, and it's necessary. It's actually necessary for us to use that strategy to create the momentum that is required, right? Because when you get those ideas, they're gonna come to you, and you're gonna be like, oh, when you start thinking and working on your business. This is part of working on your business. Then you start figuring out, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. But you release yourself from that pressure that you specifically have to do it, right? Then you get to the idea of teams. And I just want to do a little bit here today. Since we're talking about teams, we're going to be doing a masterclass on April 30th for anybody who wants to create this new way of doing business and creating momentum in your business. I'm going to have my guest speaker, Jen Duplessis. She's the queen of building teams and scaling. She's going to go deep into this piece on the masterclass on April 30th. So the link is going to be somewhere under this recording. So you can just click in it and register and clear your calendar, y'all. I'm going to tell you to clear your calendar, because when you clear your calendar, we're going to take you from where you are right now, being busy in your business, to where you want to be, which is working on your business, not in your business, right? So, and that's learned behavior. That's learned behavior, y'all. Because I see a lot of, although I talked about the CEOs who go on retreats, they a lot of them don't do it. They just don't do it because they feel, because they've been so habitually taking action all the time, they feel that they're wasting time. And one of the things I want to share with you is, sometimes the things that we think are the crazy things is the things that you should be doing because nobody else is doing it, right? I could tell you more stories on that in my world. And so here's the thing, y'all. Here's the thing. I want you to ask yourself this question. When was the last time you actually sat still long enough to hear what was actually important to you? Now, I know you're going to say to me, oh, my family's important. My business is important. My relationships are important. All the things, right? I know you're going to tell me that because that's what you're programmed to say. And if that is it, that's okay. Remember, I'm here to disrupt your thinking so that you start to think for yourself. That's why we do the success code, y'all. I'm disrupting your old way of thinking. What could it look like that you still have, or the level of success, or even higher, but from a different thought process, a thought process that's more productive than grinding? What would that look like for you? Just think about it. I'm inviting you into taking the pause to think about it and what it could look like. How would you move in the world? Would you still get up in the mornings and just go? Or would you get up in the mornings and be still for a minute? If it's even 5 minutes. And think about what you want your day to look like. And also have some white space of possibility. What could it look like without me putting something in the space? As I was coming down to start this recording this morning, I was listening to something, and it was talking about how, how we fill every minute of our day because we are avoiding something. I don't know, maybe. But again, think about it. What could you be avoiding? What could you be not wanting to acknowledge for yourself? Yeah, think about it. Yesterday, I was in a conversation with a young lady, very successful. I mean, if you read her credentials, I was like, oh my God, this chick here, huh? And she was sharing that she's at a point where, life gets to be different from what she is used to having because it was no longer appropriate for her. And the only way she got to that was because she took time to be still. She created white space in her days so she could get clear and aligned with what she wants for the next season. So again, I'm not sharing this stuff with you out of, a book. I'm sharing with you from the experiences of myself and other people that I surround myself with. Because I think that, one of the things we get to do continually in our life is learn about who we are, learn about what we want, learn about what we like, not because somebody else says, oh, you should like this, but because you really, 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 really like it. Right? So here's my invitation to you. I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes. I'm going to invite you into some things to do, y'all. Some things to do, but these to-dos are not. And then, you know what, before I do that, let me talk about real quick the to-do list, because I see it coming up all the time. And there's somebody who I study, and they brought to me the idea of creating a not to-do list. So what not to do instead of to do, right? And I'm going to invite you into that. Create a not to do list, because in this context, I believe it will support you creating the white space in your day, the white space in your calendar, and therefore the white space in your life. Create a not to do list. These are the things that I'm not doing today, right? And if you put that out in the world, your calendar will probably clear right away. Right? And the to-dos will get shorter. Because here's the thing, the to-do list, I know when I write a to-do list, it creates frustration a lot of times. It creates a level of being anxious, even though I don't like that word, but it creates a level of being anxious. And when you're anxious, that's the dopamine filling your brain, and then you're not thinking clearly, right? Because dopamine is that neurotransmitter that just shoots all kinds of things in your head, and you're like, you can't think. So create a not to-do list today, this weekend. It's Easter, it's quiet probably in your world. So great time to do it, right? And then block off, these are the things I want you to do. Block off 30 minutes of this week for white space. So whether it's 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, because here's the thing, y'all. And a lot of times people, when they hear new strategies and new principles, they want to implement them right away. But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Because if you try to do this like going in, you're gonna get frustrated, you're gonna beat up yourself. It's human behavior. I don't care how strong you are, it's human behavior to do that, right? So I want you to take this into your life. If you're taking this on, these principles into your life and your business, then you get to like weed it in, put it in a little bit at a time. So 30 minutes this week for white space. That's not a lot of time. 30 minutes white space is not a lot of time. So you guys can do this, y'all. You could do it. I promise you could do it. And then the second thing is whenever anything comes into your space, and this is something I coach my clients, whenever something comes into your space, then you got to ask great questions of yourself, especially when it's aligned, when you're aligned with your vision, when you're aligned with your vision, and you ask the question, when the thing comes into your world, you ask the question, is this urgent? Is this aligned with my vision? Right? You can ask yourself in your head or ask it out loud if you want to hear yourself ask it, but you get to ask the question because that's going to support whether or not you put the thing on your calendar or not, right? It works like a charm. It helps you to make decisions fast because things that are not aligned with your vision, your current vision, it's a no, right? It's a no in the moment. It's probably a maybe. You could put it on the back burner, maybe to revisit it, but it's a no in the moment when you're focused on that thing that gets to move the needle. Does that make sense? All right. And then perfect. The next thing is to realign with your vision and your values. What are you building and why are you building it? Because that's going to drive that other question. You see how they're all connected? Realign with your vision and your values. And your values get to be your core values, not just the values that you were taught. What values do you align with when you decided that you're going to create this business, or you're going to create the life that you have? Are they aligned with your values? I remember before I learned all these principles, right? My values were based on my mom and my family, society, which is why I got the big house. I had a big house, 2 people living in the 3,100 square foot house, and not that that's bad, and it was great, but I'm just sharing with you. Yes, I wanted that, but I wanted it from a different come from. My come from was from somebody else's values. It wasn't from my aligned value and a value that was determined by me, that this was the thing. When I bought my houses before, they were based on go to school, get a job, buy a house, right? Go to college between that. I did it a totally different way, but I still ended up at the house, right? But it's usually go to school, get a job, right? Buy the house with the cars and all the things, and make sure you get a vacation every year, right? Can you relate? Can you relate to that? Yeah. So what are your core values? And these are some of the things that, again, I'm going to teach in the masterclass on April 30th, how to determine your core values, because most people don't know what their core values are. They've been operating from everybody else's values. So I invite you guys to jump into that masterclass on April 30th so that you can learn. And here's the thing, after doing the exercise with me, you're probably going to figure out that what your core values are the same as they are right now. But most people, at least 90% of the people that I've done this with, their core values, they were shocked. They were just shocked. Shocked. And I'm going to tell you, when you know your values, it's going to eliminate busyness. When you know your values, it's going to eliminate being busy. I promise you. So, okay. Here's what I want to leave you with today. And it's a quote. I don't know where it came from. I just, I was looking up quotes to end the show with. And here's what it says. Success doesn't come from being everywhere. It comes from being here, being present, being grounded, being strategic. I'm going to say it again. Success doesn't come from being everywhere. It comes from being here, being present, being grounded, being strategic. So this week, my friends, I dare you to do less to become more. I dare you to do less to become more. And the only way you're going to do that is by creating white space on your calendar, knowing what your vision and values are, asking yourself the right questions when you have things come at you, and creating a life that you are aligned with. Okay? So, like, share, and subscribe. Post your takeaways in the comments so I could come back in here. Put your questions in. If you heard something that, you'd be like, well, Lorna, why? Or well, Lorna, what? Or well, Lorna, how? I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to disrupt your thought process. So therefore, I know that I get to answer questions that come up for you. So put them here in the comments and let's have the conversation. And have a happy Saturday, y'all. Enjoy the Easter weekend. And I'll see you on the Success Code next week. Bye for now. Oh, hi, Chunky. I just saw that you're here. Amazing. Thanks for being here.